Okay. Actually, yeah, it was 7 years ago. Okay. Yeah, we got one online. Okay. There's no speaker to come back. There he is. We'll give it another couple of minutes. We got online started, so.
Okay.
And we're getting a couple people online, so cool.
Presentations by U007D. Sounds very Rust-like.
Yep, that's Brad.
Where do you see that?
It's the third icon down on the left.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my stuff. Yeah, that is, yeah. That's their little presentation thing. I was grabbing it off so I could do the embedded Rust and try to get some of that done.
Mhm.
Did you get to the last Rust meeting?
I did.
You did, but how was it?
It was awesome.
Cool. I wanted to go, and I was going to try to go. And
Board with the LED display just working. I said, how do I debug this?
Mhm.
And Brad said, well, I didn't actually use the debugger for that one. So I went and looked at all the instructions, and the instructions say use VS Code and make a VS Code project. And then you can launch it VS Code and debug it from there.
Oh, really?
However, what I had was not a VS Code project, but a cargo project.
Okay, right.
So it turns out you don't actually need a VS Code project. What you need is a launch.json file with the right gunk in it. Say, here's what my program is, here's how you launch it, here's how you debug it. And that was the one critical piece I was missing.
Okay.
So now that I have that, I can actually debug the program that's working with the LED.
Oh,
It
nice.
turns out the bug I had was a hardware bug anyway, not a software bug. There's two types of LEDs. There's CC, common cathode and common
anode. Yep.
And I had bought the wrong one, of course.
Yep. I've made exactly that same mistake. Okay, cool. Yes. Yeah, I've been debating which one I want to go to. There's the series these guys are doing that use the Pico.
Mhm.
And then there's another one online that uses the STM32 development board. And then there's actually a third one that uses what's the name of the emulator, and I can't think of the name of it. QEMU.
Oh, yeah.
So I've done the Pico one, and the slides that are online from previous meetings are good enough. You can follow them to do almost all the things you need to do.
Perfect.
There are a few things that weren't included, and I just asked Brad directly, and he said, oh, yeah, I didn't put that in the slides. Here's what you need.
Cool. All right. Well, it's 6:30. We should probably change the topic to C++, as the Rust user group is not meeting tonight. So welcome to the Northwest C++ users group, where we talk about C++ things at least part of the time. Do our typical announcement. Would like to thank Microsoft for sponsoring our reactor room and our team support. We do have a code of conduct. Everybody here is familiar with it. I'll skip on to that. Announcements. Looking for presenters for 2025. If somebody really wants it, March is still available. Otherwise, I'll probably put one in March and get that cleaned up. In July, we are going to do a language panel. So this will be a, hang on just a second. We are going to do a language panel. And basically what this is going to be, we're going to try to find a collection of moderate experts, not like, not going to do it ISO standards body people type experts, but, people who use various languages on a regular basis. And we're just going to put a panel of those people together and do it. I want to talk to the Rust group and see if they're open to kind of like partnering with us. Hint, hint, Brad, if you're watching. But we want, C, C++, Rust, Python. I don't know. Peter, you gave me a list of them, so we'll see what we can come up with.
Yeah, Hilo, Circle, CPP2.
Yep. So if anybody here listening and sometime before, April or May next year, if you want to be on that language panel, please let me know and we'll get you signed up. Let me know who you are, your email address, and the language you would like to represent. Then, of course, no meeting in December. We take December as a traditional month off. Happy holidays, everyone. Peter, do you know if these guys even have power tonight?
I do have all of them, they do have power.
Okay.
The mid's open. We can have our after the meeting coffee.
Okay, so there will be a coffee club meeting after this meeting for folks who would like to attend at the Red Robin on 148th and 24th. They do have power. And with that, we'll hand over to our feature presentation. Peter talking about using AI for coding.
Howdy. So give me just a second to get my computer set up.
There's a snake.
See if we can make this work. Fingers crossed. Allow accessories connect. Yes, allow. Here we go. Okay, tonight we're here to talk about coding with help from artificial intelligence. I talked briefly about this before during our lightning talks, and like 4 or 5 of the slides are copied from the lightning talks, but there's a whole lot of extra new stuff here, including all the pictures, Let's get going. So there's basically 2 kinds of ways you can get help with AI while you are coding. The first one is as you type. So if you hook up GitHub Copilot or Codium, which I found out today is called Codo, to your editor, then as you are typing, you type if space, and it will try and figure out what you want to do and do it for you. Or you type / space to do, it will try and guess what things you need to do and will complete the comment for you. So I find it a lot of times it completes comments, sometimes it completes code. We'll get into more detail about what it does. But that's what I call as you type AI assistance. The second kind is query-based, where you hook up something such as ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, Llama, etc. to your editor. And this gives you a way to make requests within the context of your source code. And I'll get into some examples of how we might want to use that. So what are some things you can do with an LLM? Why would you want to use it? What can it do for you? First of all, you can say, explain how this code works. You can say, write me a function to do X, where X is something you need to be done. Modify my program to do Y, where look at your whole program and say, oh, you got to make these changes here and these changes there. There's a bug in this code, fix it. Or you could tell it, there's a bug in this code where it does X where it should do Y, fix it. Nope, you fixed it wrong, fix your fix. Nope, you fixed your fix wrong, fix the fix of the fix. Write a comment for this routine. Make my code better. With advanced prompting, you can actually write larger apps in pieces. So I've heard anecdotally of somebody who wrote all of Minecraft in about a month. So I wrote a Minecraft clone in 1 month with the AI doing most of the heavy lifting. I still want to interview this person and ask him more questions about how he does it, how he did it. But having heard that it's possible makes it very interesting. Check my code for error conditions and robustness. So if you're just working by yourself, you don't need the AI to help you write something. Once you've written it, it might be good for finding bugs or places where you might have forgotten to leak a handle. Write a unit test for this code. And then another interesting technique that I just heard of a couple of weeks ago was you can pass the output of one LLM to another one to say, improve this code. Now go to another LLM, improve this code. Now go to another LLM, improve this code. And each time look at it to make sure it's getting better. And it actually does get better is what they tell me. I have to try this one for myself. And you can check your solution to practice coding problems. So sometimes people are interviewing. I'm interviewing right now. I'm doing practice coding problems. I get the practice coding problem. I write what I want, what I think it should be, and then they ask the LLM, how would you solve this? And see if they thought of something that I didn't. Their solution is often shorter. Their solution is usually pretty. Their solution is not always performant. So for instance, in C++, you don't want to be creating strings and appending strings. They might pick a solution that creates strings and appends strings. So the big O performance is still good, but the little c that you multiply the big O by is higher than it needs to be. So anyway, that is my quick sales pitch on what the AI might be able to do for you. Now let's go into a little bit more detail. So first I'm going to tell a few stories. These next few slides will be the ones that I covered in my lightning talk a few weeks back. So I was trying to do square. I wanted to write a square function. So I typed the part in bold, and in the H file, I type int square open paren, and then it completes everything I need. Sounds good. In the CPP file, I type int square open paren, and it completes everything I need, correct, or also with the correct implementation. Yay, life is good. Then I type square test. So I start typing, and I type like cmeg hello test square. I didn't even finish typing the word square. And it wrote a good and accurate unit test for me. The code ran, the test ran, the test passed, as it should. Okay, I'm feeling pretty good about this. That was just a small problem. Let's try square root. So again, I start typing in the .h file, int square root, and it completes that. However, I probably should have used double there. So maybe I didn't give the compiler or the LLM all the information it needed. And then in the CPP file, I type square underscore root, and it returns x times x. Something's a little bit off here. But I didn't actually notice it because the first one had gone so well. So I just kept going and said, hey, great, make the square root test. So I type square R, and it makes a square root test calling the square root function I've just written. And the test is correct, and it fails just like it should. Wait, the test fails? That's when I went back and found out that they had cheated on the definition of square root. So Copilot. So many times, Copilot will just offer to finish my comment, and it's not that useful. Just ignore it and keep typing. Sometimes it gets things exactly right. I might type an if statement for something I need to do. I might already have a to-do statement saying what needs to happen, and it'll do the thing that needs to happen. I'm impressed. Sometimes it hallucinates badly, as we saw. So I started writing a custom stepper class. I wrote a new application for the iPhone. So I've been learning how to program for iOS. I decided to write a meditation timer. So this is a new meditation timer I wrote in Swift for iOS using AI to help me. And one of the things it has is a circular display. Another thing it has is a custom stepper class. So it's got a couple of little buttons in the settings where you can like press the minus button to go minus and the plus button to go plus. This is not a built-in control. This is something that we had to do by hand. So that was my custom stepper class. And I asked it to make me a custom stepper class, describe a little bit what I wanted, and it wrote the class properly and gave me what I wanted. I was impressed. I read something recently that says 25% of new code at Google may be written by AI. And I talked to some of my friends who still work there because I used to work there not too long ago. And they said, yeah, I think what they're talking about is where it offers to autocomplete things for you. They're just accepting the autocomplete. So the autocomplete is actually useful and is making good code. They didn't say that they didn't go back and edit it afterwards, but at least the initial write is done by AI. So it's saving some time. So stories about GPT. GPT is able to suggest how I modify the file I'm currently editing, but it loses my comments and its suggestions, so I can't always just cut and paste. So I'll show you an episode later that when I call GPT and ask, how do I do X? It'll write me a nice new window with showing how to do X, but it's lost all my comments from the code. So I can't just open up, cut everything from the window and paste it in, or hit an accept button to have it make the changes. I sort of paste it in manually. It's also very helpful for research. So the app that I wrote was in Swift. This is the C++ user group. Anybody want to guess my primary language? C++. You guessed it right in one. Okay, Swift is all research for me. I know exactly how to do it in C++. How do I do that in Swift? And a lot of times the LLM will have the answer for me. It knows how to write Swift. It knows how to do things the Swift way. So if you want to ask, how do I do X? Then ChatGPT may have a good answer. I need to write a Voronoi diagram. I've heard of Voronoi diagrams. Don't remember how they are or what they even look like, although it should be like a bunch of little polygon things with points in the center. You can ask it and it will write you code to do a Voronoi diagram. I could say find a bug in my code, and it did. And once it actually read my to-dos and fixed them. So I had a to-do somewhere, it read the whole file, and it actually did the to-do in its response for something I asked it to do that was unrelated. I was totally impressed. So the next thing I want to talk about is local LLMs. So everything I've talked about so far is either an LLM in the cloud or an LLM running right here on your machine. But you can do a lot with the LLMs running on your machine. Now, why is this an important scenario? Well, first of all, you may have a company who doesn't want their source code going out on the web. And if you paste portions of your source code and send them up to ChatGPT, guess what they're going to do? They're going to use it for training. If somebody else asks for a very similar problem, they might just actually get your source code. This is something most companies would like to avoid. So if you can keep all the AI inference on the machine and nothing leaves your machine, the companies might be much happier with letting you use the local large language model. Secondly, local LLMs are generally free. So you can download them and run them without paying anybody anything on your laptop. And I'll show you doing that right here. And third, you might be off the net but still need support. Now, a little bit about the difference between local LLMs and the big online services. So the big online services have huge models with billions of parameters. I read that there's one Google model with like 540 billion parameters that was serving queries. And this was like 6 months ago, so it's probably even bigger.
Yes, somebody's over 1 trillion now, I've heard.
Yep. And they have huge hardware specialty designs by NVIDIA with CPUs or GPU accelerators wired together to make these massive machines that can run your queries quicker. And here, all we have is like an Intel or ARM CPU, and the GPU might not even be useful for using LLMs on this. But the models that we have now are getting good enough that can actually produce reasonable results, and we'll look at some examples a little bit later. All right, local LLMs actually work. So about 6 months ago, I tried using Llama CPP and Llama file technology to run the Llama 2 large language models on my Windows machine and my GPU. The 70 billion parameter model actually ran and produced valid C++ code, but it was pretty slow, slower than I could have typed it myself. Whereas ChatGPT 4.0 is pretty fast when I run it on the server. So if you connect to the server, at least with Llama 2, you'll get much faster results by going to a server. However, Llama 3, which has come out more recently, is so much faster that it's a lot faster than I can type, and it seems to produce pretty good code, maybe on a par with what ChatGPT 3.5 would do. And that was actually written for Llama 3.0. We're now up to Llama 3.2, which is probably somewhat better than 3.0 was. I'm thinking, if it's this easy to do and if they're this good, maybe the large language models will just start coming built into our editor and tools. So maybe the next time you install a new Visual Studio, it'll be Visual Studio plus some Microsoft local language model. So it doesn't even have to go out to the web to get something. Although I'm sure that Microsoft would like to sell you a subscription to get even better LLM results by using the web. They might make it available for free, or somebody might make a plugin that'll run with Visual Studio Code that'll use them for free, and the plugin will come essentially easily. So as you type LLMs, so far I've found two varieties. There's GitHub Copilot, which is paid. It's about $10 a month, and I've been paying that for the whole time I developed the program on my iPhone here. And there's Codium, which is free, but I couldn't actually make it work. As I said, Codium has just been renamed Quodo, or Quodo, which I just discovered today, so this slide is not updated yet. As far as querying LLMs, so if you're using Emacs Query Editor, like I do, GPTel is a package that will let you connect to lots of different backends. So there's like 20 different kinds of backends it knows how to talk to. If you're using Visual Studio Code, then you can go to the menu, the Tools menu, choose Copilot, choose Editor Inline Chat, and then that will help ask the LLM a question while you are running. You'll have to install the Copilot extension to VS Code to do this.
And that sends the query to the web?
That will send the query to the web, yes. Now, XCode is an editor on the Mac for writing iOS programs, and you can actually hook Copilot to that there is a extension, which I will get into more detail, you can add, which is not officially supported by Apple, but it does work and it does everything I needed to do. Although just 2 weeks ago, GitHub announced that they now have a GitHub Copilot extension. There's an official one by GitHub for the Mac, which I haven't played with yet. So I plan to play with that next week. I wanted to give the demo while my machine was in a working state, instead of experimenting. So next week I will experiment. And backends, there are just too many backends to list here. One of the things we'll talk about later is how to find a good backend to talk to. Okay, roll your sleeves up. It's time for some live demos. So we'll hit escape first. I'll put this off to the side. And we'll bring up the command line. Let's see, can people read that or do I need to try and make it?
Barely.
Maybe a couple.
Not
All
really.
right, let's see if I can find a way to make this bigger. Let me know when it's starting to get readable.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, I'm okay there, but
Is it good for the
One more
people to
click.
One
One
more
more
click.
click?
Okay.
Yeah.
You bring
How's
that
that?
back.
So, yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to olama.com. So it says, it's very simple, get up and running with large language models, and there's a download. So I did that download, and it's already installed and running.
All right.
So I can ask Olama for a list of what language models it has, which is the last command I ran. So right now I've got 3 models installed. I've got Llama 3.2, Code Llama, and Llama 3.1. Now, what are the available models? Let's come over here and click on models.
Oh.
Wow. Boy. Yeah, there's a lot of models. Next question is, which one of these models are good?
Yep.
And that is a bigger question, which we'll actually get to in a slide a little bit later on. Okay, so let's go ahead and start Olama. We can either run Llama 3.2 or Code Llama. Both of them can write reasonable code. Which one do you want to see?
3.2.
3.2, yeah.
Okay, 3.2 it is.
2 gig. Okay.
Llama run, Llama 3.2. And we are ready. Now let's ask it to write a C+ function. What do y'all want to see? I usually do like reverse a linked list or find a cycle in a linked list or something like that.
Reverse the linked list.
Sure, reverse a linked list.
Okay.
And there, much faster you can type, is a function. And it looks like it actually has not only an explanation here at the bottom, but it has a main that shows how the function works. Yep, it has the other things you would need, such as the node structure, create node, and then here's the function itself, complete with comments.
So quick question.
Yes.
That's running just on your laptop
That's
CPU.
running right here on my laptop CPU.
It's
So
not even the accelerator.
No GPU on the laptop involved, correct? Or do you know?
I have no idea.
Maybe.
Oh, sure, it's gotta be using the GPU.
Well, I mean,
Well,
Apple
that's a
is known
Mac.
for having GPUs that are easy to get to and program.
Yeah, that's a Mac, so I bet it may not be.
These are.
Task monitor while you run it or something, just to,
Sure.
I don't know what Matt has for that.
See, where is task monitor? Right here?
It just seems.
Activity monitor? Oh, yeah, it looks
The activity monitor sounds good. Are you seeing it or is it
on the right side.
right side? Ah, there we go. Okay, so it has a tab for CPU. It doesn't have a tab
Oh,
for
yeah.
No, I
GPU.
I see.
I saw it
the
in the-
GPU is on the right side.
yeah.
Oh, here we are, percentage GPU. All right, let's do this again. And now let's do my other favorite, find a cycle in a linked list. All right, the GPU numbers are staying pretty low.
Be quiet.
I mean, unless it's because it's sorting by
Oh,
CPU.
Oh, yeah, there's
Yeah,
something.
when's
Hold on,
that?
that looks like GPU. I see
Yeah.
Yeah, let's
690.
is in fact using some
Okay.
GPU.
Cool.
Yeah,
Okay.
Very cool. It just works out of the box.
That's actually even a more interesting result, given that it's a Mac.
Yeah.
Thank you. Very, very interesting.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and exit that session by typing /by.
Mm.
Let's see, what was the next thing on my list? So that was a llama from the command line. Llama file. So the folks, I think at Meta came up with this cool idea of having a llama file, which takes the model and embeds the model in a file that is a multimodal binary that will run on Unix or Windows or Mac. It's like, wow, that's interesting. Now, there's one very interesting caveat I found here is when I tried loading a llama file on Windows, it just crashed and it wouldn't run. And what I found out was it's because the executable size is greater than 4 gigabytes. Windows doesn't support executables larger than 4 gigabytes. As long as I made a llama file smaller than 4 gigabytes, it ran just fine.
Oh my God.
Wow.
Yeah, I remember that limitation.
Yeah, that
From
was
my
a
days
Win
working
32
at
limitation.
Yes,
And
But I didn't
some of it
realize that-
continued in the
yes.
64 land.
I didn't realize it hadn't ever gone up.
Wow.
So I've copied here the command line that I need to run it on my system.
I need to fix that sooner rather than later.
Okay, and let's use a llama file. Function server.
You with the GPU.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, find the smallest value in a linked list, maybe?
Do you want to compare it to the other?
Okay, we'll bring that up so you can watch. And here we go. View column is still silent.
Oh, there it is.
There we go. And this time we even get color-coded syntax. Why or how they did that? See, here's an example use case. There's find smallest. Here's the node structure. So the same sort of thing that we saw from running Llama 3.2.
Sorry, and this one was which model?
I think it said 3.2 at the start.
Also 3.2, but it's a llama file.
Yes, this is a Llama file instead of using Ollama.
Okay.
So Ollama is a server that will basically load a bunch of different things. This is Llama 3.2, the 3 billion parameter instruct model. So instruct models are often better for coding. So I've generally tried to use things that are better for coding. All right. Let's look at.
Do you know if it can, if you add a bug, do you think it can like fix it?
Yes, I do. And we can actually try that in a little while. Okay, next is XCode. So XCode is the Max code editor. So we'll bring up XCode. We'll open the little app that I wrote inside Swift. Okay, so this is a function that draws tick marks. So from my app here, you see the 4 tick marks? This function is going to draw those.
I want to show it to the camera too.
Oh, yes. The camera, here's my app. Maybe you can see it. So we're going to try the as you type first. So I'm going to type if space, and then it's trying to guess what I might want to write. So it's guessing if I want to write if number of intervals is less than 0, return. So basically looking for an early exit in the case of nonsensical input. Now you'll notice that I've just followed that with if intervals is less than 1, return, because there's really no point in having only a single tick mark. So it was guessing what I wanted, guess something reasonable. I was somewhat impressed with that. So next, let's ask this to do something. Let's see, what's something I could do with the tick marks? Make the tick marks twice as long. So I click this button here, and then I'm opening a session with ChatGPT, and this is going to send the whole source code file up with my query. So it's like, how do I make the tick marks twice as long? So first it gives me a verbal description of what I need to do, what functions need to be changed, and where I need to make a change in my code. So right now I have a tick length equals radius times 0.2. I just need to do tick length equals radius times 0.4. Well, that was a fairly simple thing to do. Let's try something more interesting. Let's see, let's go to the timer manager. Update settings. Have something different. I'm going to go to the settings view. That's not quite right either. Okay, so I'm going to say add code to ask the user about uploading mindful minutes to Apple Health. This app here will keep track of how many minutes you meditate. And if you meditate for 20 minutes, when you're done, it will upload that 20 minutes to Apple's Health. And you can go into Apple Health, you can see, hey, I meditated for 20 minutes today. However, to do that, you have to ask the user permission. So right now I'm asking the user permission when it comes time to do the first upload, but what I really want to do is ask the user permission when they go to the settings page and they click upload mindful minutes to Apple Health. Let's see when they turn on the option. Let's hit return. I made it think a little bit about this one.
And this is running in the cloud, right?
Yes, right now we're talking to the cloud, we're not going local.
And this is Xcode, right?
This is XCode, which is Apple's editor for iOS stuff. Okay, did I stump it? Okay, maybe that was too hard. So I have asked similar questions and actually gotten it to do the right thing. Maybe that's not going to happen today. So for instance, one thing I've done before is I've got a circular progress view. So once I start, you'll see that the circle has a little blue dot at the top, which is actually going to extend around the circle. This is a circular progress view about how much time you're meditating. Now the watch, I've run the same app for the watch, comes with circular progress view control. There's no circular progress view control for iOS. So what I said is make me a circular progress view control. And it did.
Wow.
And it worked. It wasn't exactly what I wanted. I had to fix it up after I did it, but it was generated by that. Well, here it says the request timed out. Okay, so we didn't get an answer there. Let's try cut and pasting. Oh, no, we can't really do that, can we? Okay, so there will be other things that I'll show in VS Code and in Emacs. But that's an example of the kind of thing you can do. All right, so let's quit Xcode. Next thing we're going to do is VS Code. So let's bring up Visual Studio Code. So for Visual Studio Code, I'll talk about this more later. I had to go into extensions and I had to install a Copilot extension. It's free, yay. However, if you install the Copilot extension, you want to get anything done, you have to get a subscription, which is $10 a month. I paid the $10. Okay, back to the file. So here we are inside main. First, I'm going to demonstrate some as you type completion. So sometimes all it needs is just a blank line to get started, but it's not getting started today. So let's type if. And it guesses about what I might want to do, which looks very similar to what I actually did. Okay. Now let's try asking a question. So let's say I wanted to output this word twice. So I go to, I actually wrote it in the slide here. Menu, or right-click menu. I'll right-click. Copilot, editor inline chat, and it brings up a little something like I had in Xcode where I could type in what I want it to do. Modify the code below to output each word twice. So this isn't anything very difficult to do. I'm demonstrating how it can actually understand what you're asking for and give you what you want. And you see that's actually made the change in the source code. All I have to do is press accept, and it will output word, then space, then word, then space. Whereas it used to be just words and space. So when I click discard, you can see it go back to what it was, just words and space. So, wow, I thought that was pretty cool. Okay, next I'm going to show Emacs using GPTel. So this is Emacs. That's my init file. Let's go to C++. Okay, here's a C++ file. So let's type if space, and then you see in gray, it has entered some things that I could choose to use. I can just type Control G, and that all goes away. So that's as you type completion. And right here, this is where we're hooked up to the web service, and it doesn't have the context of my source file. So I have to cut and paste the context of the source file into my question. But basically, after the star, I type my question, and then I hit Control C return, and it will do whatever I wanted it to do. If we look in the upper left corner here, I'm sorry, upper right corner, you'll see it says GPT-4o Mini. That's the model that it's going to use. So right now, it's going to use a GPT-4o Mini model. So let's ask it a question. Write some C++ code to produce a Voronoi diagram. Control C return. And boy, that's a lot of includes. This is going to be a big program, I think. Instructions: install Boost and download the Boost libraries.
I can't do that for you. Come on.
Compile the program.
Yeah, really?
Run the program. And what to expect for output.
You have to do something?
Now, the cool thing about the GPTel extension is you can change which large language model you want to use. So when I click on this, I click on which model I want to use, and we can use anything we want. So let's use Ollama. Okay, so now that we've set for Ollama latest, this is going to be totally local. And what I need to do is turn off Wi-Fi so you can see that it's totally local. This is why I'm glad I had this kind of connection, because if I were using Teams, then we would just lost connection, but we didn't. Okay, so this one will not be able to produce a Voronoi diagram. It's not quite smart enough. It doesn't have as much knowledge as the full model, but it should be able to write some simple code. We're in Ollama. And there it is. You can see that the Wi-Fi is off. There's a slash through my Wi-Fi. No other wires connected here except for the projector.
Ask it to do the Voronoi diagrams.
Sure.
Just like
Sure, we'll do that.
wires.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I.
Oh, it actually succeeded. I was using Code Llama last time, and this is Llama 3.2.
Oh,
Llama 3.2 is more recent than Code Llama.
That's true.
Code Llama is based on Llama 2, whereas this is based on Llama 3. Just Code Llama is trained on code, whereas Llama 3.2 is trained generally.
Oh.
Who knows if it runs,
And
but.
it can still do it even in general. I mean, they may have, I think they did. They may have fine tuned it a little bit on code.
Now we'll change to Code Llama and ask the same question. And earlier today or yesterday when I tried this, I didn't get a good answer. Let's see what happens. Oh, no, I did get a good answer. Okay. I don't know why it's giving me a good one now when it didn't then.
When did you try it before?
It was either this afternoon or yesterday.
Oh.
That's how.
Hold on, I have to say.
The power came back on.
Yeah, I guess. Not gone. Hard to say.
Been talking to its friends.
Okay, so it shows Emacs using
It
GPT.
changed like the teaching of computer science when you can just like ask this thing to write the code. It's like.
Huh.
it's
Well,
very-
because as we showed at the beginning with the stories, it doesn't always understand everything it's doing.
Yeah.
So it's great if you need a research assistant. If I know how to do this in C++, but I don't know how to do it in Swift, it's great. If you want to sit there and write a program from whole cloth, you can actually write programs from whole cloth, but the larger the program gets, the less likely it's going to be doing what you want. And there's a limit to how big of specification you can feed in. So you can maybe feed in like 10,000 characters of specification, which isn't enough to build Microsoft Word, for instance.
And you think that that's the main limitation is the number of characters in input?
No, I think that is the limitation you're going to hit first.
Mhm.
I don't know if it's smart enough to build something big well. So I told you about that friend of mine who said he wrote all of Minecraft in a month. And I'd like to understand more about how that happened before I make any prognostications about just how smart it is. All right, those are demos. Anything else you want to see before we go back to the slides?
You mentioned you were going to show it debugging something, but maybe you're going to get to that.
Oh, we can introduce a bug.
That seems like maybe a different level of understanding.
Yep. So let's find an interesting file to use here.
And there's also like syntactical bugs versus like the reasoning could be wrong.
Yeah, I suspect it would perform quite different on those.
Okay, so here's some Rust code. I've been going through a Rust thing called Rustlings. By the way, don't turn on GitHub Copilot while you're trying to do Rustlings. Rustlings is a set of exercises where they give you broken code and expect you to fix it. And GitHub Copilot will fix it for you and you won't learn anything. All right, so let's introduce a bug. All right. Oh, it's querying Olama instead of the network. I'm going to turn my Wi-Fi back on. And let's see, we need MS Jest or MS Connect? MS Jest, right?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Hopefully my cookie is still good.
Several.
Yes, but I'm not sure those bugs are right.
It's hallucinating bugs.
Yes. They might be, I'm just not sure. So let's go to GPT-4o, which is a good recent model.
Mhm.
And let's ask the same question again.
That's interesting. I wonder if you can give it code and just be like, is there a bug in this code?
Malformed JSON in response.
Huh.
Did I do something wrong here?
Are you actually on the internet? You might need to sign in on the captive portal.
Yep, that's why I was wondering if it would keep my cookie. So let's find out. No, I'm not.
It's doing the,
Yeah, still thinking. All right, turn it off again, turn it on again. MS guest.
That looks better.
Let's find out. There we go. I keep reaching for things in the upper corner. If the mouse goes right into the corner, it will lock the screen. That's why I keep seeing the screen lock. Okay, let's try this again. The code is mostly correct, but there's a logical issue with how and when the job completion count is done. So yes, it found the bug that I just put in. It talks about how the code increments job completed by 2. So yes, it did find a bug.
all right.
And that was Emacs?
Yes, I'm inside of Emacs, but I could do the same thing inside XCode. And I presume you can do the same thing inside VS Code too. I haven't done it, but I imagine you can.
Okay, and you can use a local model or a network model in the.
Yes, you can use a local model or a network model. Again, which local model you use probably depends a lot on how good it is. And probably the ones in the cloud are better. But again, you may have, as I talked about earlier in the presentation, if you've got your company's code base and you're forbidden from sending it out, a local model may be your only option. Anything else you'd like to see demoed?
Can you give it something you haven't added a bug to and ask it if there is a bug in the code?
Sure.
I can remember.
Spelling here. And send it the LLM. Now this is interesting. There's a small logical issue relating to the timing of the print line statement, similar to what was highlighted earlier. Let's actually remember the conversation that I had. Okay, anything else?
I wonder if you could do a code review with it or something.
Yeah, you can totally ask it for a code review.
Okay.
All right, I will go ahead and jump back to the presentation for now. Okay, now, this is cool. How do you set all this stuff up? So for Emacs, if you're an Emacs user like me, and probably nobody else in the room is, but maybe somebody who watches this on video someday is,
IUVI.
then you can install the gptel package and then follow the instructions on the web page. I've got a link to the web page later on. I got an app key for ChatGPT. So when you have an app key for ChatGPT, you pay by the query instead of the month. So you pay like so many dollars for every 1,000 tokens, or so many dollars for every 10,000 tokens. And a token is like a half a word or a third of a word or something like that. So that's what I did. And then you use the app key for ChatGPT. You make your queries directly from Emacs using the package. In XCode, you want to install the Copilot extension for XCode. I'm sorry, install the Copilot for XCode app, and I'll have a link to that later. And there should be a way to install Copilot itself. So this extension or this app is a separate app, but now Copilot has their own. For VS Code, there's a GitHub Copilot extension. It requires a $10 a month subscription, and it does both completion and querying. And other editors are probably also supported. So Vim, I suspect, is supported. JetBrains IDE such as IntelliJ, CLion, and Writer, I know are supported. Sublime, I've heard is supported. Interestingly enough, Android Studio, which is also JetBrains IDE, which they have customized for Google to write Android apps, is not supported yet. Hopefully that's coming someday. Now, setting up local LLMs. The easiest way to do this is with Olama. You just install Olama and then you ask Olama for the LLM you want. If it's not on your machine, but it's in their list of supported LLMs, it'll go download it, and then you can run it. By the way, if you need to get this information later, we'll send out a link to the video and a link to the slides. And the slides will have links in them you can click on. So that may be a way to get to this information later without typing.
With these newer, bigger models, do you have to worry about your hardware being able to support it, run it? Like, is there a way to?
So almost all the models in Olama are smaller models,
Okay.
like 8 gigabytes max, and the general laptop will support it just fine. I was able to run a 70 billion parameter model on Windows, not using Llama file, of course, but using a llama.cpp, and it was able to support that and run it with a video card. Which reminds me one thing I was going to demo about Llama files. But when we run this Llama file, there's a command line interface, but there's another interface. If we go to localhost 8080, we get a web interface and we can type our query right here. Let's see, find largest and smallest. If you remember this time. And there you go.
Was that last one completely local or?
Oh yeah, that was local. That was using a Llama file. The Llama file is completely local. So Olama is the one I recommend. It's easiest to use. It's easy to set up. You just have to remember the name olama.com, go there, download it, ask for a model, and you're good. You can also use llama.cpp, which is a server that you can get, which I was able to install, and then you can pick out any model you want from huggingface.com. Huggingface.com is sort of like a repository of thousands and thousands of models. In fact, the biggest difficulty you face if you're going to use llama.cpp is picking which model you want to use, because there are so many and there's no good guidelines. You can start querying, how do I pick a good model on Hugging Face?
And what is,
And it'll give you some answer.
what's the source of the Olama models? Where are those coming from? Is their curated
They are
collection?
curated the models from different places. So like the Llama 3.2 model comes from Meta originally, but Olama has curated them. There's the Mistral models, the Phi models, the Code Llama models. There's all sorts of models available. There's a Quint model, which is coming from the folks in China who gave us Baidu, I think.
Wait, what's it called?
Quint?
Quint.
Yes.
Quent?
I think it's QWENT.
Quint.
We'll go there later. We'll go to a page that has it listed later. And this, you can also go to localhost 8080 for a browser interface. You can also hook it up to your Emacs editor, and you may be able to hook it up to the other editors too. There's the Llama file. We talked about that already in the caveats for Windows about don't use anything bigger than 4 gigabytes. There's GPT for all, which is put out by the folks at OpenAI, which basically only has 2 models. It has Llama 3, and you can go to the ChatGPT on the web. So I find it is interesting because it comes from a major player, but it's not as useful as Olama is. And there are a lot more just search. So as I mentioned in the beginning, there's a lot of things I'd learned in the last day or the last week or the last couple months. This is changing frequently. So if you're watching this video more than 3 months from the day it was recorded, there's no telling how much the information is still good, but I do recommend searching so you can find it. For setting up VS Code, you want to install this extension, the GitHub Copilot Chat extension. As you go through, they will lead you through signing up and getting the key attached to your VS Code instance so that it will just start working for you. Let's see. Code GPT and continual alternatives. That's not supposed to say continue. That's supposed to say Codium. I'll fix that later. And now it's Quodo instead of Codium. They'll hook up a local LLM, but they are buggy. And here is a link to a YouTube video about how to hook up a local LLM to VS Code. Setting up XCode, I found this application, which I ran and has been working well for me. but now there is a GitHub written one by the folks at GitHub themselves. Setting up Emacs, there's a package called GPTel. I would find the GitHub.com page for GPTel, install it from there. Page has instructions for hooking up many different kinds of language models. So not only the Llama file, the Llama CPP, and the OLLAMA, but hooking up directly to GPT, hooking up directly to Gemini, hooking up directly to Anthropic, all the other big ones. Now, which LLM should you use? Accuracy and cost differs a lot per LLM, and this is changing fast now. So for instance, the biggest models from GPT, they charge a lot more per token of input than the pared down models. They're better. Are they twice as good? It's hard to tell. We need a way to find out. Also, some LLMs are trained for coding tasks, and those may be better. So for instance, I've been using CodeLlama a lot, but as we saw today, Llama 3.2 was able to do a few things that CodeLlama couldn't do as well. Also, the instruct models tend to work better for code. So, conclusions. Using AI to help you code really is the wave of the future. Your productivity will improve. Maybe not as much as 2x as some are suggesting, at least not yet, but it really can help your productivity improve. They're especially good for research tasks
Can
where
we quote you on that?
you don't know how to do things. Sorry, what'd you say?
Can we quote you on that?
Yes, you can quote me on that. AI still hallucinate. Don't trust what it gives you. Think of it as you need to code review anything it writes, like a junior programmer that you're not quite sure you can trust them yet. And sometimes you use deprecated APIs, which is generally a no-no for most companies you work at. They're still not great for proprietary code bases, but as I said, local LLMs can help. If you work at a Google or a Microsoft or an Amazon, they don't want your code going out to the outside world. In fact, the large companies like that probably now have their own versions you can use where they promise not to send the code to the outside world. But if you're a medium-sized company, maybe not so much. You can save time typing with Copilot, and you can save time researching and working in a new area by direct querying the LLM. How do I make a circular progress control for iOS? When Copilot happens, it's sometimes magical, but it often doesn't happen in time to save me typing. So sometimes I'm like 3/4 of the way typing through an expression when GitHub offers to type exactly the expression I was typing. And it's faster to finish typing the expression than pay attention to whether the thing they gave me is what I wanted or not. And prompt engineering still matters to get good results even for coding requests. So don't just live with the default prompt, but when you're not getting the request you want, see what you can do to make the prompt better. So the person that I referenced earlier that said, yeah, I was able to write all of Minecraft in about a month, or a clone of Minecraft in a month, is very good at prompt engineering. And he said that's how he did it, is by writing very good, very careful prompts. And there's a lot of science to it. I did some quick looking on web pages for the science of how to write better prompts and didn't find a lot yet, but there may be something coming. Useful links. So first, here's the link for Copilot and VS Code, how to do it. Here's the link for GPTel for Emacs, how to do that. Here's the link for Copilot for XCode. Codium, which is now Qudo, is an open source alternative to GitHub Copilot, but I wasn't able to make it work on the one time I tried it. Hugging Face is where all the models come. VBloke is a guide. Hugging Face has curated a lot of models. So instead of going to huggingface.com, which has many tens of thousands of models, I'd go to the Bloke, which only has hundreds of models, and start there. And lastly, I've got a leaderboard. So I said earlier we get back to the answer of which are the best LLMs. This leaderboard is one of the ways you find out. So they have things ranked and scored, and you can see how the different LLMs are stacking up against each other as of the moment you query it. So anything I put here now is going to be totally obsolete in 3 months by the time people are watching the video, or by the time you need to use this knowledge. But knowing that leaderboard exists means you have a place you can go to find out where the good LLMs are. Yes.
What benchmarks are they using? And what if you care about coding and that's all you care about? How are they coming up with?
Yeah, so
Categories.
I think.
Oh, when they do have categories, there we go. Oh, so this is overall, so maybe you can change it to code.
Okay, let's see where the categories are.
Yeah,
It's down.
down. On the left.
Ah, here we are.
Oh, yeah.
There it is.
And here's coding.
Oh, one.
So it looks like GPT-01 mini is at the top right now. And ChatGPT 4.0 latest is not far behind. Gemini. You'll notice that the large language models, the local large language models
Where's Llama 3.2?
are much further down.
Maybe they haven't rerun it since it,
But I don't see Llama 3.2, that's Llama 3.1.
Yep.
3.2, I think you said it's pretty new, right? Maybe
Here's
have it.
3.1 instruct.
Oh, no. In the leaderboard.
There's a model I was talking about, the Quen, I guess it's QWEN. So this is where you can come to find out which large language models are likely to be useful. Other interesting links I found while researching this. So here's a link to the article that says 25% of new code at Google is AI generated. They don't say that it's just accepting autocompletes. That was what my friend said. There's an article about 5 easy ways to run an LLM locally. Thank you to Lloyd for pointing that out for me. And there's another article, Forget ChatGPT, why researchers now run small AIs on their laptops. And this is one of the ones that had a lot of pointers to local LLMs.
In nature.
And that is the end of the presentation. Any questions?
I've got one. And I don't know if this is known yet or not, but so consider the case where you're actually doing like CUDA code or something, right? You're using, whatever you're doing, you're using the GPU on your development system. Does running the LLM locally interfere with that? Or how do those two interplay? Is it smart enough to say, unload this, load that, or just leave it loaded and you need to unload it and it's going to, or is it better to just use 2 machines?
Short answer is, I don't know.
Yeah.
Slightly longer answer is, usually I'm either writing code or running, and I'd be using a large language model while writing code, but not using it while running code. So I'd imagine that the system would basically swap them out naturally.
Yeah.
Now, I might be running a large test of my code. At the same time, I'm trying to use a large language model to debug something. At that point, they could be vying or competing for the resources offered by the GPU, and I have no idea what will happen.
Okay. You got a hand up from Robert.
Yes, Robert. You may have to unmute yourself.
Yes. At the beginning, when you showed the square root function, and it actually computed the square, and then you showed it a unit test case for the square root function, and you said, well, obviously the tests failed. Well, actually, those tests passed, I think, if you ran them, because it was checking to make sure that the square root of 4 was 2, for example. Or I mean, it was making sure that the square root of 2 was 4 and the square root of 3 was 9. So those tests would pass even though the code was obviously wrong. If that, I think that's what I saw.
I could totally have been making a mistake here, but let's go back and look. So let's hit escape. Okay, here's the square root test. Expect that 2 is the square root of 4, expect that 3 is the square root of 9, expect that 4 is the square root of 16.
All right, I got that reversed then, sorry.
I think the large language model actually did the right thing in that case.
Well, that's interesting that it knew how to test it, it just didn't know how to write it.
Use it to check itself.
But
Yeah.
keep in mind, it doesn't understand what it's doing, right? It's just
Filling in
it's just filling in blanks. So, yeah,
the idea of getting it to check itself is.
yeah, that's a beautiful example of it really doesn't understand it. It's just pattern matching, right?
This was also like almost 5 months ago now.
Mhm.
If I reran it with a current LLM, it
Yeah,
might do the right
probably
thing the first time.
Yeah.
The point though is just don't trust everything it gives you. Any other questions?
Yes, I have one.
Go ahead.
How do you scale it up? For example, I have a major app that has hundreds of files of C++ files in it. And its legacy is that it used to be in C, and that it has a lot of uses of char star for strings and my own little things, little functions to handle those, create them and destroy them and other things to do with them. Question is, can I ask a large language model to say, look for all of the char star in this big code base and replace them with standard string? Is anything you can think of up to that task? Hundreds of files.
I think the short answer is no, not yet. So having said that, you could ask it to fix one file at a time, 100 times, which is not great. If it's 10,000 times, it's not even doable, but 100 times it might be.
But they're calling each other. These are not independent things. This is one app. And, we're talking classes and functions that call each other. You have to make it all self-consistent. Can you ask a large language model to do that?
So again, I'm going to say I think the answer is no. I've got one more caveat for you, and then I'll give you a reason why I think it's no. And that caveat is when I was using XCode to write my application for the phone here, there were sometimes it would tell me about changes I had to make in other files, and it actually knew about the other file.
Oh, interesting.
So most of the time, it only seems to have context to the file that you're working in, which is what your editor gives it. But somehow the Xcode editor was giving it more context of my project.
Or maybe it was guessing that there was another file there that it didn't see, and it was just
So
hallucinating.
now you're seeing like a header file saying file X. I was thinking that file X must have had some.
File X must define this function.
Right, but it did, I think, get some function names correct.
Hmm.
So I'm guessing it had a little bit more context than that.
Yeah, but the whole app is in VS Code. So the context is all there in VS Code if you can just scale it up to a VS Code project.
Yep.
Yeah.
So the next thing I'm going to talk about is that LLMs have current number of input token limits. So you get to give it maybe 1,000 tokens or 2,000 tokens or 10,000 tokens, but that's a lot less than a whole code base. Each token is a subword. So each token might be a half a word or a third of a word or thereabouts. So right now, we're not allowed to feed in that many tokens. I think that limit will go up with time. I don't know how fast it will go up.
No,
So there may come a time when you can feed the entire body of code in as one. Now, there's one other thing you can do, and that is to use refactoring tools. So for instance, if your app were in Java instead of C++, and if you're using JetBrains Java editor, they've got refactoring tools that could say something like, for this function here, replace all instances of string with string 2, and it would affect not only the function, but all of its callers and callees. So it would run that trail completely throughout.
But you're saying that's not currently possible.
That's not currently something you can do with an LLM. It might be something you can do with an editor.
Oh, well, yeah, clearly. I'm trying to plan how to do that exact thing.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Wonder if you could ask the LLM ask the LLM, like, how do I use this tool to accomplish this refactoring?
Or you could just ask the LLM, how do I go about it in general?
Yeah, what's a migration strategy?
Or ask the LLM to write you a tool that would.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Well, wait,
Yeah.
is the 10,000 token limit, that's on like per question,
Per
per
prompt?
query? Because
Per query.
if it remembers what you asked before, could you feed it a series of files like
The way
10,000?
it remembers what you asked before is by summarizing. So create a summary of the things you've asked before, and we'll put that summary into the tokens that it sends. So you still can't get past the 10,000 token limit.
Yeah.
And it's using part of that token to remember the conversation.
So the scale as of now that you can use these LLM tools for is basically a compilable unit, a C++
Roughly.
file.
So right now, I'd say basically yes. Although, as I mentioned with my Xcode, it looked like it was looking into other compilable units in some cases.
Maybe a handful.
So maybe your editor is able to, when it sends something up to the LLM, include enough context for it to do a bit more for you.
VS Code.
Yeah, I don't know about VS Code. I know that I can do that with Xcode. I haven't pressed VS Code that hard yet. And in Emacs, it doesn't even take the whole file. I have to cut and paste everything I want it to look at right into the conversation window.
All right. So the answer is not yet.
Yep.
Thank you.
Welcome. Any more questions?
I have a question.
Go for it.
What if what you're asking for requires some kind of database, like let's say you're playing Scrabble and you want to know what two-letter words end with an A, for example. It would have to know the whole dictionary, in order to write a program like that. What do you think it would do?
So that's interesting. So there's something called retrieval augmented generation, or RAG, where basically you hook up a database query, you do a database query before you pass your information into the LLM. So it's using some information from a database along with the LLM to get good results. There's something else you can do, which is tuning your LLM. So I could make an LLM that was tuned for Scrabble. There's another technology called LoRa, for low rank adaptation. And what it will do is you take an LLM like Llama 2 that has already been trained, you train off something else over to the side, and then you add the weights of things you trained to the side to the base LLM to produce a specialized LLM. So you could train up a specialized LLM for Scrabble.
Oh, okay, thanks.
Sure. Any more questions? Any other things you want to see a demo of? All right, well, it looks like that's it for the evening. Thank you, everybody. Hope you enjoyed the presentation.
Thank you, Peter. This was awesome.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
When I get home.
Oh, yeah, I've got lots of
This
things
is
to try.
ridiculous.
Some things to install.
And if an AI happens to be listening, you could also be a presenter. No.
Now, wait.
Write a presentation for Northwest C Group.
That's right.
I'll put
Do the
PowerPoint slides.
presentation.
Include PowerPoint slides and witty
With
handout.
timing information.
Create my PowerPoint slides for my presentation.
So there is a tool out there that does the PowerPoint slides.
Oh.
I actually came across that one. I end up doing a fair amount of presentations, either for work or whatever. I found it completely useless because I generally the type of stuff I'm doing for slides is all, it's all new material, right? So by the time I told the LLM enough information to put into the slide, I could have just made the slide. Right? So,
Like,
yeah, it's like, yeah.
right, but, okay, but I'm wondering maybe if you wanted to make sort of generic slide or something that's not
That-
new.
This one get a copy of this slide.
Yeah, some other. like-
So are you on the Northwest C user group mailing list?
I am not.
Yeah.
I should change that.
Yeah.
Plus user
that-
mailing list and it will come to your inbox.
Right.
Make a research paper, go and do the research and then. make the research paper. Oh.
Okay. Anything else before I shut down the meeting?
See.
Okay. Thanks, everyone, for attending. Thanks, Peter, again for the presentation and actually sneaking this one in quickly and early, so we had a talk this month. And just a reminder, there will be no meeting next month. Everybody have a happy holiday season, and we'll see you next year.
And if anybody's interested, we're going to the Red Robin at 148th and Northeast 24th for after meeting talk about programming and other world stuff.
Cool. Thanks, everyone.
Oh, I have a question. How can I get on the internet in here? Because, I need.
Microsoft guest.
Yeah, Microsoft guest.